It started with something small. So small it would have been easy to miss. Emily's necklace, the one she used to fiddle with whenever she was nervous, was gone. She had worn that silver pendant every day since the night I gave it to her. 7 years ago, under the stars, she promised me forever. And now, just like that, it was absent. We were sitting in the living room, the TV humming some show neither of us was really watching, when I noticed her bare neck. I swallowed the questions rising up inside me and forced a casual tone. "Where's your necklace?" Emily barely glanced up from her phone, that thing she was glued to more and more lately. "Oh, it broke," she said too fast. "Getting it fixed." I nodded like it made sense, but the way she said it left a sour taste in my mouth. She loved that necklace. She would have told me if it had broken. The first seed of doubt was planted right then, but I didn't water it yet. I buried it deep, pretending it was nothing. Pretending we were still okay. A few weeks later, the real cracks began to show. Emily started working late. Meetings ran long. Networking events popped up out of nowhere. I tried to be supportive. I told myself she was just chasing career goals. But late one Friday, she called and said she was heading to a work happy hour. Something about the way she rushed off the phone made my skin crawl. I knew the bar where her coworkers liked to go. So I drove there, parked across the street, sat in my car and waited. Minutes dragged into an hour and then I saw her. She wasn't with a group. She wasn't laughing with her coworkers. Emily was pressed close to some guy I had never seen before, her hand on his chest, her head tilted back in laughter, too intimate, too easy. I froze. Watched like I was outside my own body as she touched his face and kissed him in the middle of the sidewalk like they were the only two people in the world. I didn't confront her. Not then. I drove aimlessly for hours after that, trying to find a version of the truth that didn't make me the biggest fool on earth. By the time I got home, Emily was already there. Asleep, or pretending to be, curled up in our bed like she had no care in the world. I sat on the edge of the couch in the dark, trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted to shake her awake, demand answers, scream at her for making me look like a joke. But another part of me, the colder, sharper part, whispered that she didn't deserve that kind of passion anymore. No, I was going to handle this differently. Emily thought she had one. That I would either stay silent or leave quietly, too broken to fight back. She had no idea who she was really dealing with. The next morning, I played it cool. Made coffee. Read the paper. Pretended nothing was wrong while my mind plotted every step. Emily floated into the kitchen like it was any other Saturday morning, she chirped, grabbing a mug. I barely looked up. "How was work last night?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. She hesitated for a fraction of a second. "It was good," she said. "Boring, honestly. You didn't miss anything." I smiled to myself. She was still lying. Still underestimating me. Good, I thought. Let her. The next week, I started gathering evidence. I knew her routines too well. Her passwords. Her hiding spots. I didn't have to search long. Tucked under a stack of old magazines in her office was a second phone. Cheap. Burner style. I powered it on and there it was. A whole world of betrayal laid out in texts and photos. His name was Daniel. Their conversations read like a bad romance novel. Plans to meet. Compliments. Promises whispered in stolen hours. One message made my blood boil. "I cannot wait to be with you again. It feels so right." I snapped photos of everything. Every conversation. Every picture. Every lie. Emily had made this easy for me. She hadn't even bothered to lock the phone. Amateur mistake. I could have confronted her then. Could have thrown the evidence in her face, watched her squirm and stutter her way through excuses. But that would have been too kind. No, I wanted her to feel it. To watch her perfect little life crumble around her piece by piece. I waited. Patiently. Every evening I smiled. Listened to her fake stories about work. Kissed her goodnight. She never suspected a thing. The final piece of my plan came together when I found their next meeting spot in the messages. A cozy little Italian restaurant downtown, one we had gone to for anniversaries. The irony was almost too much. Friday night, 7 p.m. I booked a table 2 seats away from theirs. When the night came, I dressed down, threw on a baseball cap, and slipped into the restaurant unnoticed. I ordered a drink and waited. Right on schedule, Emily walked in. She was glowing, laughing, her hand brushing Daniel's arm as they slid into a booth. I watched them, heart hammering but steady. And when their appetizers arrived, I sent over a bottle of champagne. With it, a note. "Thanks for showing me your true colors." I watched as the waiter delivered it. Watched Emily's face blanch as she unfolded the note. Her head whipped around, scanning the room. For a second, our eyes met. She froze. Daniel looked confused. I raised my glass to her. smiled. And then I stood up, walked out of the restaurant without looking back. Emily thought she had the upper hand. She thought I would be destroyed. But the truth was I was just getting started. The drive home felt like a dream, a blur of headlights and wet pavement as my mind raced ahead to everything still left to do. I knew Emily would come home eventually, tail between her legs, trying to patch the cracks with lies and sweet words, but I was done giving her the benefit of the doubt. When I got home, I sat at the kitchen table in the dark, sipping cold coffee and waiting. It was nearly midnight when I heard the front door creak open. Emily stepped inside, her heels clicking nervously on the hardwood floor. She froze when she saw me sitting there. For a long moment, neither of us said a word. Then she forced a smile so brittle I could almost hear it crack. "Hey," she said, her voice way too casual. "You were up late. Everything okay?" I stared at her, silent. Let her squirm. Let her fill the space with the garbage she thought would save her. She dropped her purse on the counter and took a tentative step closer. "I was going to call you," she said. "Dinner ran late. Networking stuff, you know." Her hands twisted together in front of her, betraying the nerves she was trying so hard to hide. I tilted my head, studying her like a stranger. "How was the food?" I asked finally, my voice even. She blinked. "Good. Really good. Italian. You would have loved it." I nodded slowly. "I bet." Her eyes darted around the room like she was searching for an escape hatch. "Look, I'm exhausted," she said quickly. "Can we talk in the morning? I just need a shower and sleep." Without waiting for a reply, she rushed upstairs, her steps echoing in the silent house. I waited a few minutes, then followed. I moved quietly, practiced now in ways I never wanted to be. I found her in the bathroom, leaning over the sink, splashing cold water on her face. When she caught sight of me in the mirror, she jumped. "Jesus, you scared me," she snapped, her mask slipping for a second before she caught herself. "Sorry," I said, my voice flat. "Just wanted to give you something." I held out my phone, screen lit up, displaying the photos I had taken that night. Emily stared, her face draining of color. Her mouth opened, then closed again. She looked like a fish out of water, gasping for lies. I stepped closer, lowering my voice to a whisper. "Save it. I know everything. I know about Daniel. I know about the second phone. I know about the months of lies." Her eyes filled with tears instantly. The real ones, not the practiced fake ones she used to get her way. "Please," she whispered. "It is not what you think. It never meant to go this far." I scoffed. "Not what I think. You kissed him like you forgot I even existed. You sat there, in our restaurant, laughing with him like the last 7 years meant nothing." Her lip trembled. "I made a mistake," she said, reaching for me. I stepped back. "No. A mistake is forgetting our anniversary. A mistake is leaving your keys at work. What you did was a choice. Over and over again, you chose him." I paused, letting the silence stretch between us like a noose. "And now you are going to live with the consequences." I left her standing there, shell-shocked, and went back downstairs. My bag was already packed. Clothes, passport, important documents. Everything I needed to disappear from her life. I was done playing the fool. As I zipped up the bag, Emily came running down the stairs, her bare feet slapping against the wood. "Please do not go," she cried, grabbing my arm. "We can fix this. We can go to counseling, we can work through it." I looked down at her, really looked at her, and realized I did not even recognize the woman clinging to me. The woman I had loved was gone. Maybe she had never really been there. I gently pried her fingers off my arm. "I am not the one who broke us," I said. "You did. You just didn't think you would get caught." She sobbed then, big ugly tears that might have been real, but it didn't matter anymore. I slung the bag over my shoulder and walked out the door without looking back. I spent the next few days at a cheap motel on the edge of town, giving myself time to think, to breathe. Emily tried calling, texting, even emailing. Every message was the same mix of apologies, denials, and desperate promises. I ignored them all. I had already started laying the groundwork for the next phase. I wasn't just going to walk away. I was going to make sure the people who needed to know the truth saw it with their own eyes. Emily loved playing the victim. She loved spinning her version of the story where she was misunderstood, neglected, forced into the arms of another man. I was not going to give her that satisfaction. Using the screenshots, the texts, the photos, I compiled everything into one folder. No commentary, no angry rants. Just the facts. Then I sent it. To her family. To her closest friends. To the small group of people whose opinions she cared about most. No explanations. No justifications. Just the truth. Then I sat back and waited for the silence to shatter. It did not take long. The calls started pouring in within hours. Some from friends who were furious at her, others from friends who were stunned and didn't know what to say. Her sister Rachel sent a long message apologizing to me, saying she had suspected something was off for months but didn't know how to bring it up. Her father, usually a stern and quiet man, left a voicemail full of disappointment and sadness. I didn't listen to it all. I didn't need to. I had done what I came to do. I had exposed the truth. The rest was up to Emily. I knew I would see her one last time. I could feel it in my bones. Sure enough, 3 days later, she showed up outside my motel room. Her face was blotchy from crying. Her clothes were wrinkled. She looked like a ghost of the woman who had once walked so confidently through our life together. "Please," she whispered when I opened the door. "Just hear me out." I didn't say a word. I stepped aside and let her in. She stood there in the middle of the dingy motel room, wringing her hands. "I messed up," she said. "I know that. I don't even expect you to forgive me. But I need you to know that I never stopped loving you." I wanted to laugh. Love? Is that what she called betrayal now? I stayed silent, letting her spill her carefully rehearsed speech. She talked about how lonely she felt, how she didn't know how to communicate, how Daniel had just been there at the wrong time, how it had never been about love, just attention. She cried. She begged. She fell apart right there on the stained carpet like a tragic movie scene. When she finally looked up at me, her face was raw, stripped of all pretenses. "I am sorry," she whispered. "Truly sorry." "I believe you were sorry," I said quietly. "Sorry you got caught?" I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I just picked up my bag, walked to the door, and held it open. "It's over, Emily. It's been over." She broke then, sobbing so hard she could barely stand. But I didn't waver. I couldn't. Not anymore. She walked past me, her head bowed, and disappeared into the night. I closed the door behind her and leaned against it, feeling a strange sense of peace settle over me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't carrying her lies anymore. I wasn't carrying her shame. I was free. And this was just the beginning. The weeks that followed felt like waking up from a coma. At first, everything was disorienting. I would reach for my phone expecting a message from Emily or wake up thinking I heard her footsteps in the hall. Habits built over years do not break easily. But the silence that once would have scared me now felt like a gift. I poured myself into rebuilding a life that was mine and mine alone. I found a small apartment across town, nothing fancy, but it had big windows and just enough space for me and a fresh start. I painted the walls myself, filled the place with second-hand furniture, and hung up pictures from trips I had taken long before I ever met Emily. For the first time in years, my home reflected me, not the illusion we had built together. The first night in my new place, I sat on the floor with a cheap pizza and a beer, staring out the window at the city lights, and realized I was smiling. Not because I had forgotten the pain. Not because everything was suddenly perfect. But because I knew I had survived. Meanwhile, Emily's world was falling apart. I heard bits and pieces through mutual friends. Daniel had ghosted her the second the fallout started. No surprise there. He was never in it for the long haul. Her reputation, once spotless, was shredded beyond repair. Friends who used to fawn over her at parties now crossed the street to avoid her. Even her own family kept their distance. I did not revel in her misery. I did not stalk her social media to watch the wreckage. I had let go. She was a chapter one had finished reading, a weight I had set down. I had no interest in picking it back up again. One evening, a few months later, I found myself walking into a coffee shop near my apartment. I had started writing again, something I had loved back in college before life got too loud. As I settled into a corner with my laptop, someone asked if they could share the table. I looked up and saw her. Claire. She was nothing like Emily. Where Emily had been polished and curated like an Instagram page, Claire was warm and unfiltered. She smiled easily, laughed without checking to see who was watching. She was wearing jeans and a messy ponytail, a camera slung over one shoulder. "Mind if I sit?" she asked. I shook my head, and just like that something shifted. We started talking. About books. About photography. About all the little things that make life worth waking up for. It was easy with Claire. No games. No hidden second lives. Just two people figuring it out as they went. For the first time in a long time, I felt seen. Not as someone's accessory, not as a backup plan, but as a person who mattered. We took it slow. I told her up front that I had been through a brutal breakup. She nodded, told me she had been burned before too. There were no fairy tales here. Just honesty. And it was more beautiful than any fantasy I had ever tried to force with Emily. With Claire, I could breathe. I could laugh without wondering if I was saying the wrong thing. I could show up as myself, messy edges and all, and she stayed. One night, months into whatever we were building together, Claire and I sat on a rooftop watching the sunset. She leaned her head on my shoulder and asked softly, "Do you regret it? Everything that happened?" I thought about it for a long moment. About the years I had wasted on someone who saw me as disposable. About the pain of betrayal and the fire it had set inside me. About the lonely nights and the long drives and the cold empty spaces I had clawed my way through. "No," I said finally. "Because it brought me here. It brought me to a place where I know what I deserve. Where I know who I am." Claire smiled and squeezed my hand, and for the first time I realized I meant it. The past had shaped me, yes, but it did not define me. I was not just the guy whose wife had cheated. I was not just the guy who had walked away from the wreckage. I was the guy who had rebuilt. Brick by brick. Breath by breath. Looking back now, I see that losing Emily was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of it. It forced me to stop pretending, to stop settling, to stop shrinking myself to fit into a life that had never really been mine. It taught me that love without honesty is just a pretty lie. That loyalty given to the wrong person will bleed you dry. And that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away when every part of you wants to stay and fix what cannot be fixed. I do not know what the future holds. Maybe Claire and I will build something lasting. Maybe we won't. But either way, I know I will never lose myself again trying to hold onto someone who doesn't see my worth. I have scars now, sure, but they are reminders of what I have survived. Of the fire I walked through and came out stronger on the other side. So to anyone out there who feels like their world is ending, like they are drowning in betrayal and loss, hear me when I say this. It is not the end. It is a brutal, painful, necessary rebirth. The people who hurt you do not get to write your ending. You do. You get to decide what happens next. And me? I am choosing hope. I am choosing laughter. I am choosing messy, imperfect, breathtaking life. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, if you have ever clawed your way out of a place you thought you would never escape, I would love to hear about it. Make sure to subscribe for more real stories like this and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. I will be reading them all. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve it.